Hey everybody, Mr. Riley here, and I'm here in the town of Cold Spring to celebrate Earth Day. So happy Earth Day everybody. And this is a very fitting spot because this town has seen a history that is marked by beauty, destruction, industrialization, and rebirth.
Earth Day, an event to increase public awareness of the world's environmental problems, is celebrated in the United States for the first time on April 22nd, 1970. Millions of Americans, including students from thousands of colleges and schools around the country, participated in rallies, marches, and educational programs. Today, Earth Day has become a rather warm and fuzzy event, but at its inception in 1970, the first Earth Day was a radical uprising, born of anger over unregulated air and water pollution, and directly inspired by the mass anti-Vietnam War demonstrations in the late 1960s. Earth Day was the brainchild of Senator Nelson of Wisconsin, a staunch environmentalist who hoped to provide unity to grassroots environmental movements and increase ecological awareness.
Behind me is a unique mound structure that is believed to be constructed by the Lenape over 1,000 years ago from native culture. So as we look at history, it's important not just to look at the pre-industrial life, but also look back thousands of years for clues about how to live a sustainable life. Behind me, where that ocean-going barge is going right now, is Storm King Mountain. And the Hudson River painters, such as Thomas Cole, repainted these paintings to show the beauty of the Hudson Valley to the entire world. Here's an old iron shaft mine from Little Stony Point you can check out while you're here in Cold Spring, a remnant of the Industrial Revolution past. I'm here at the nearby West Point Foundry, and this is the home of the Industrial Revolution right here in the Hudson Valley. So this is where, in America, the Industrial Revolution got started, and this is where we begin to rely on machine-made products rather than handmade products. And this will have enormous benefit on our culture and way of life, but it will not be without side effects. And fortunately, the side effect is going to be more reliance on fossil fuels, and our emissions of carbon into the atmosphere will greatly increase.
Locally in the Hudson Valley, environmental groups also started a grassroots protest in 1962 to stave Storm King Mountain from being destroyed for the construction of a power plant by Con Edison. Musician Pete Seeger launched America's first environmental flagship, the Clearwater, to build a boat to save the river.
Behind me is the Marathon Battery Factory. And from the 1950s to 1978, this battery factory made batteries for the U.S. military. Unfortunately, it also contaminated the West Point Foundry Cove. And the cove was impacted by the natural wildlife and habitats that even today, this area is still unable to be inhabited by people. So it just shows the industrial impact that one site can have for many, many generations. Between 1983 and 1996, the United States Environmental Protection Agency declared the Foundry Cove a Superfund site, initiating a $100 million cleanup that dredged sediments and deposits of thousands of tons of contaminated soils. In 1996, Scenic Hudson purchased 87 acres of the Foundry property to ensure its permanent protection as a public resource for recreation and education. In the 1970s, along the Hudson River here is not the idyllic parkland, but rather it was an open sewer with lots of pollution and heavy metals. Today, the Foundry Cove has been restored to its former glory, with the abundance of wildlife returning, and it's a destination for bird watchers and for kayakers.
Earth Day 1970 achieved a rare political alignment, enlisting support from Republicans and Democrats, rich and poor, urban dwellers and farmers, business leaders, and labor leaders. By the end of 1970, the first Earth Day led to the creation of the United States Environmental Protection Agency and the passage of other first of their kind environmental laws, including the National Environment for Educational Act, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, the Clean Air Act, and the Clean Water Act. These laws protected millions of men, women, and children from disease and death and have protected hundreds of species from extinction. The first Earth Day inspires us and shows us a path forward for how the world needs to deal with climate change. The social and cultural environments we saw in the 1970s are rising up again today. A fresh and frustrated generation of young people are refusing to settle for platitudes, instead taking to the streets by the millions to demand a new way forward. According to the world's top climate scientists, greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise over the last decade, and that trend must be stopped by 2025 in order to avoid catastrophic impacts.
Hope is not passive. Hope is not blah blah blah. Hope is telling the truth. Hope is taking action. And hope always comes from the people.
Recently, the United Nations has put out its most dire predictions for global warming and for climate change, offering a code red for humanity. And that sounds like a very scary concept of a code red, but that is the reality that we are now facing because of the actions of those before us and of our own generation. So we must come to grips with the science and try to find a renewable path forward. So this is something that is a daunting task, but when we look to the history of Earth Day, it is also a task that we as humans are up to and can solve this problem with a concerted effort. Where I'm currently standing in Cold Spring is a construction of a park, and they're also putting in higher seawalls to be able to handle the rising ocean. All right, everybody. So hope you enjoyed this Earth Day history and that you're inspired to be the change that you would like to be and that we need all of us to be in order to deal with the impacts of climate change. So keep living history and keep every day Earth Day. All right. Peace, everybody. Bye.